Welcome to Rise Up Voices from the Front Lines, your window into relationship, identity, safety, emotional awareness, regulation and intelligence, unleashed potential, passion and purpose.
Hello, everybody. Before we begin, I want to say this clearly and calmly. This episode discusses a real missing child case out of Oklahoma, and we are not here to sensationalize harm. We're not here to speculate, and we're not here to assign guilt beyond what has been formally charged and publicly reported. We're here to learn. In this episode, we'll talk about what we know, what we don't know, and what we still need to understand, because that's how prevention actually works. And if at any point this feels heavy in your body, you are allowed to pause. You're allowed to take a breath. You're allowed to come back later. You don't need fear to learn safety. You don't need urgency to build readiness. And it's important to discuss why this case matters. This case matters not because it's rare or unique, but because it isn't. Across the country, children go missing every single day, and most are found, but many aren't. And far too many cases sit quietly at the intersection of missed signals and systems that don't quite connect, and isolation. This episode isn't about one family. It's about how children can fall through the cracks between agencies, between adults, and between assumptions, even when people believe that they're doing the right thing. And it's about how we all do better without panic, without blame, and without turning children's pain into public spectacles. So here's what's been publicly reported. In early January of 2026, a 12-year-old child was reporting missing from Oklahoma. He was last seen near a hotel area in town, and a few days later, the Oklahoma Highway Patrol issued an endangered missing advisory. The Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation joined the case and described it publicly as a suspicious disappearance. While the child was still missing, his mother and stepfather were arrested. Authorities later filed charges alleging child abuse, neglect, and sexual abuse. These are all allegations. They are not convictions. On January 11th, the child was found alive by volunteer searchers. Officials said that he was medically evaluated and wouldn't be returning to the same living situation. The child's name is Ryan R.J. Davis, and I will say his name once because he is a real child, not a headline. And then I'll return to speaking about this as a case, not a character study. There are additional details reported in court filings and by relatives speaking to media. We'll be referencing these carefully and only as reported statements, not as established facts. What we know, what we don't, and what we want to know. So we know that the child was reported missing. We know the authorities considered the case suspicious. We know that a multi-agency search occurred and the child was found alive. We know charges were filed alleging abuse, and officials stated the child would not be returning to that home. These are anchors. What we don't know. We don't know what reports, if any, were made before this disappearance. What agencies were contacted historically? What decisions were made behind the scenes? What thresholds delayed or triggered intervention? What the child disclosed to whom and how? What recovery supports are currently in place? And it's important that we say that out loud, because pretending certainly where there is none is how fear narratives grow. So what do we still want to know? Not to accuse, but to learn. What early signals existed and who noticed them? Where did responsibility pass hands? How do systems decide when concern becomes action? And how do we prevent children from being routed back into danger simply because proof is hard to produce? And let's talk about language. Runaway versus escape. I want to pause here a little bit and talk about this because for many listeners, this becomes personal. The term runaway gets used constantly, and sometimes it's accurate, but sometimes, often, it isn't. For many children, leaving isn't rebellion, it's escape. Escape from harm, escape from fear, escape from environments their nervous systems recognize are unsafe long before words exist to explain why. And here's the problem. When adults hear runaway, they often assume bad behavior, when we should be just hearing it as data. This matters deeply for survivors who might be listening, especially those who were labeled difficult, defiant, or troubled, when what they were actually doing was trying to survive. We can't say definitively what motivated this child's actions, and we won't label his experience beyond what is publicly known. But we can use this to teach this distinction because it changes how adults respond in future cases. Behavior is a form of communication. Flight is information. And safety systems need to learn to listen better. So let's talk about some of the reported missed intervention opportunities. Some local reporting includes statements from relatives who said that she'd raised concerns and filed for a protective order, and that the child had come to her home more than once before being returned. That's only a reported statement. It's not been independently confirmed by an agency in public records. So we don't treat it as fact yet, but we will treat it as a learning signal. Because even the possibility of that scenario raises questions that show up in thousands of cases nationwide. Isolation as a risk amplifier. When a child is isolated, that is not regularly seen by teachers, coaches, neighbors, or extended family, safety signals are dimmed. Isolation doesn't cause the harm, but it hides it. And then there's threshold paralysis. Many adults will hesitate to act because they don't want to overreact. And systems hesitate because they require proof. Children can't provide proof the way that adults expect them to, so the system waits. And waiting is often framed as neutrality when it isn't. So let's talk about the KidSAFE Six-Lens Response Map. The first is preparation. Preparation is not fear training, it's orientation. When we talk about preparation in KidSAFE, we're not talking about drills that scare kids or scripts that assume the worst. We're talking about helping children know who and where safety lives in their real worlds. And one of the most powerful preparation tools is what we call a safe adult map. A safe adult map is not just tell your kid to find a trusted adult. It's concrete, practiced, and specific. In real life, it looks like your child can name at least 3 adults they could go to if something felt wrong. Those adults are written down, saved in your child's phone or backpack if they don't have one. Your child knows where those adults live, not just their names. And you've practiced what it would look like to walk to that house, knock on that door, or ask for help. Just an example, if you couldn't get home, whose house would you go to? What would you say if you felt scared? What if you couldn't reach me? Who would be your next option? Preparation also includes data, not just concepts. Trusted adults' phone numbers and addresses saved under clear labels, not just names. Addresses written down so they can be shared. Knowing which neighbors are safe, knowing which public places are safer than isolation. And here's the part that matters deeply. Not every child has a parent protecting them. For children without reliable caregivers, preparation means identifying external safe adults, teachers, bus drivers, librarians, coaches, front desk staff at a business, police, firefighters, medics, anyone in a uniform. Knowing public safety anchors, where's the library, fire stations, schools, churches, and community centers. And learning that needing help does not require permission from home. Preparation is teaching kids that you are allowed to seek safety. Number 2 is prevention. And prevention is pattern recognition, not prediction. Most harm isn't sudden, it's built quietly. Prevention means teaching adults and children to notice patterns, not just dramatic moments. Key prevention signals include sudden isolation or withdrawal, fear of going home, unexplained compliance or people-pleasing, changes in sleep, appetite, or mood, increased secrecy paired with shame, avoidance of certain people or places. For adults, prevention looks like paying attention early, even when it's uncomfortable. For kids, prevention is learning that if something feels off, it matters. We also name this clearly. Prevention is not about kids being hypervigilant. It's about adults being awake. And when kids don't have adults who notice, prevention unfortunately becomes self-advocacy. Teaching kids words for discomfort. Teaching them that I don't know why, but I don't feel safe is enough. Teaching them they don't need proof to ask for help. Number 3 is protection. And protection is layered. One layer failing should not collapse the entire system. Protection isn't just locks, rules, or supervision. It's pathways. Kids need to know how to leave a situation safely without escalating danger. That they're not required to confront. That silence can be protective temporarily, and disclosure can come later. Protection also means adults have clear escalation pathways, documentation habits, shared responsibility, not someone else will handle it. For kids without safe caregivers, protection includes knowing that they can go to mandated reporters, understanding which adults have to act, learning that asking for help isn't betrayal. Protection is not about forcing bravery, it's about creating exits. Resilience. Resilience isn't toughness, it's nervous system literacy. And many kids will freeze, comply, or appease under threat. This is absolutely normal. This is biology. It's not a weakness. Resilience means teaching kids that their bodies react to protect them. Freeze is a response that is absolutely normal, and it doesn't mean that you failed. Teaching kids that they did not choose this, that they are not at fault. And we build resilience by teaching regulation skills before crisis happens, normalizing emotional responses, removing shame from fear. And for children without consistent support, resilience might be one safe adult who believes in them, one routine that stabilizes them, or one place where their body can exhale. Resilience grows in relationship, not in isolation. Number 5 is response. It's what happens when preparation meets reality. Response isn't chaos, it's clarity under stress. So for adults, it means report quickly. Share as much accurate information as possible. Avoid speculation. Support investigations. Do not interfere. For kids, it means knowing how to ask for help, knowing who to contact, knowing they won't be punished for telling. And this is a huge one. Response should never punish the child for surviving. Kids who leave unsafe situations are often disciplined instead of protected. That reverses safety logic. A good response says, I'm glad you came. We can figure this out. You're not in trouble. And number 6 is recovery. Recovery is not a return to normal. It's a return to safety. Being found alive is not the end of the story. Recovery includes stabilizing routines, trauma-informed support, time, choice, voice. Recovery means adults resist the urge to rush or push healing. It means that schools and systems adjust their expectations. It means that kids are allowed to move at the speed of trust. And for children without stable homes, recovery might involve new environments and new adults and new rules. And that transition itself requires care. Recovery is where long-term outcomes are shaped. So the KidSAFE Six-Lens model exists because no single moment keeps kids safe. Safety is built through preparation, prevention, protection, resilience, response, and recovery. All six together with humanity. So here are a few things that can help guide adults if you're concerned. Resources and systems, of course, differ by location. So always research your local reporting requirements and support networks ahead of time. But universally, document concerns with dates and specifics. Report patterns, not just incidents. And follow up, because silence doesn't mean that the situation was resolved. If you're a mandated reporter, report. If you're not, escalate through appropriate channels anyway. Always keep the child's safety central, not adult comfort. We refuse to allow children to fall through the cracks between agencies, jurisdictions, or assumptions. If you or someone you know is concerned about a missing or endangered child, there are some national resources that include the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, child abuse reporting resources through your state or local child welfare agencies, crisis support lines if a child or adult is in immediate danger. All of these resources exist beyond this program, and that matters. This case isn't about fear, it's about responsibility. Shared, layered, human responsibility. Children don't ask for or need perfect systems. They need connected ones. They need adults who listen when behavior speaks. They need pathways that don't end in silence. And if you want to keep learning how to build safety without panic, you're invited to join the KidSAFE community. If you're a professional, educator, organization, or community leader and want support bringing this work into your environment, you can book a free connection call to explore training, keynotes, or master classes. There is never any pressure, no fear, just readiness. Thank you so much for joining me tonight on Voices from the Frontlines, KidSAFE Edition.
Become a Rise Up Hero sponsor to provide mental wellness and crisis response resources for those who serve country and community. Join us in the Rise Up movement.